Good evening, Springfield Township. Welcome to the November 14th, 2022 Township of Springfield Planning Board meeting. Adequate notice has been given in accordance with the sunshine laws. Notice was published on September 29th in the local source, the official newspaper of the Township of Springfield for 2022, and posted in the annex on September 29th, 2022. Can we do a quick roll call? And then we'll do, let's do a salute to the flag first. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the
republic for which it stands, one nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thanks everyone for joining. Can we do a quick roll call?
Yep. Mayor Alex Kaiser.
As a student and former player.
Present.
The major development in the middle
Yes, ma'am.
news conference today.
Mr. David Barnett.
I'm here, but can someone mute that?
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Mr.
I'm here.
Andrew Schwartz.
Present.
Mr. Aaron Lawfer.
here.
Mr. Brian Brendel.
Here.
Ms. Marissa Ruggiero is absent. Mr. Scott Wishna.
Here.
Vice Chair Sharon Kessel.
I don't know where she is.
Maybe she's delayed. Chairman Jeffrey Tiger.
Yes, I'm here.
We have a quorum.
Perfect. Everyone had a chance to read the October 2022 meeting minutes that's on the Google Drive? Any questions or concerns? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve said minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the October 2022 meeting.
Anyone second it?
Second.
Mr. Wishna, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No, anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes. That's perfect. Okay, before we go on to the resolutions, I just wanted to give the board a heads up. I did receive an email from Mr. Lopes, who has decided to resign his position. He's our alternate one. He has been very busy at work and a lot of family life, so he decided that it was best to resign and hopefully come back again sometime in the future. I wished him the best of luck on behalf of the board, and I sent the note to Mrs. Law, who in turn sent it to our clerk for the governing body to review. So just a quick announcement. We have last meeting, we had 3 cell phone tower plan waivers. For this time, we're going to make a motion to approve 1, 2, and 3 on the agenda, which is New Singular Wireless, PCA LLC, AT&T, for waiver of site plan 2022E, 2022F, and 2022G. Can I have a motion with that?
So moved.
Second.
Huber, can we have a roll call on all 3?
Yep. Mr. Barnett.
Yes.
Committeeman Huber.
C.
Mayor Kaiser.
Yes.
Mr. Lawfer.
Yes.
Mr. Wishna.
Yes. To approve all 3.
Great. Thanks. And Chair Tiger.
Yes, to approve all 3.
Just to let you know that this is Sharon Kessel and I've just joined the meeting. I'm keeping my camera off because I have poison ivy all over me.
Oh,
Uh-oh. Or Sharon. Okay, Sharon. So the next application that we had was the farmer's market. The board acted favorably on it. Everyone thought it was a really cool idea. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve application 7-2022S for the farmer's market 80 Route 22 block 3102 lot 10 for preliminary and final site plan for variances.
Motion.
So Aaron at 6 made the motion and Mr. Huber seconded it.
Yeah.
I will not intervene.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Lawfer.
Yes.
Committeeman Huber.
Yes.
Mayor Kaiser.
Yes. Is that Mayor? Yes.
Yes. Mr. Barnett. Thanks.
Yes.
Mr. Wishna.
Yes. To approve.
Vice Chair Kessel.
Yes.
And Chairman Tiger.
Yes,
Motion
perfect.
passed.
Okay, anyone here before the board for application The Goods LLC we've decided to, it's application number 9-2022S. That application is being carried to November 28th, 2022 at 6:30 PM virtually at the same exact time. There will be no further notice for that application. It is application 9-2022S. The goods will be carried to November 28th, 2022. So for any members of the public that are here for it, nothing will be discussed on that application. Last thing that we have on the agenda is Floor Decor, block 1301, lot 11, 12, and 13 application. This is for an amended site plan with variance 3-2022S. If the board recalls, back in March, April, the board heard this application for Floor Decor. The board acted favorably and approved the application for a parking variance and for lot coverage. Since then, the applicant went to the Department of Transportation. The Department of Transportation reviewed the way we asked them to position the road, and they came back and said that they wanted a greater offset, or they wanted a smaller offset, 12 feet from the curb lining to the jug handle on 22. That requires them from additional lot coverage, variance, and the repositioning of some curb. So we're going to hear from one witness from them to explain what happened with the DOT and also describe the banking of 10 additional parking spots. Mr. Disco, can you add anything before we open it up?
No, and they, as a result of the original application, they added additional landscaping trees and provided for the EV parking in there. So other than that, I think you've summed it up.
Okay, perfect. Mr. Gensler, if you can please give a little bit of an opening and then call your first witness. And we'll
Sure,
swear.
thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Howard Jenislaw from the law firm Gibbons PC, representing Floor & Decor. I'll give you a brief introduction, although, Mr. Chairman, you pretty much outlined exactly why we're here. We obtained site plan approval for this project from the board by resolution memorialized in June. When we initially met with the board's consultants for technical review, the biggest concern expressed to us was the location of that driveway. And so we located it as far to the west as we could to try and minimize those U-turns, cognizant that the DOT may or may not approve it. After this board gave its approval, we unfortunately were not able to get the approval from the DOT because of the proximity of that driveway to the lot line and to the driveway and the adjacent property. And so it's for those two reasons that we had to redesign the driveway in a way that would satisfy the DOT, while at the same time still trying to stay as true as we could to the concerns that this board had when we initially had our meeting with its consultants. So as a result of that, we've come up with a reconfiguration of the driveway. It does increase impervious coverage. It's still an improvement over existing conditions, but it is a slight increase over the variance that the board previously granted. I listened in at the meeting the board held in October when this was a discussion item, and I heard the comments about trying to add additional bank parking spaces as a way to mitigate the additional impervious coverage. We heard you, we've done that. You may recall that this project is going to have a very low parking demand, and so we were able to add some bank parking spaces without compromising the availability of parking. So the variance relief that we're seeking as part of this application is for maximum lot coverage, increasing 2.4% over what you previously approved, but still an improvement over existing conditions. And secondly, a modification of the variance previously granted relative to parking to permit 30 bank parking spaces as opposed to 20 that were previously approved. The overall total number of spaces doesn't change. There are no new design standard exceptions that are proposed, and that really is why we're here, for those two variances and for amended site plan approval. My plan is to call one witness from Kimberly Horn, who will testify as both an engineer and a planner. And I did submit our exhibits ahead of time. They're marked A1 through A5, and my plan would be, when I call up Mr. Perkanik, to have him go through the exhibits on screen share and walk the board through the explanation and what the plan changes are. So that essentially is the summary. Unless there are any questions, I would call up Mr. Prokanic as the first witness, the first and only witness.
Yes, so Stephen, if you can please swear in the witness so he can give us some brief testimony on the changes.
Sure. Mr. Prokanic, can you please swear or affirm that any testimony you provide before the board this evening will be the truth?
I do.
Can you please state and spell your name for the record and give us your business address?
Certainly. It's Richard Prokanic. That's P as in Peter, Rocanik. We're located at 301 Kimley Horn and Associates. We're located at 301 Carnegie Center Boulevard, Suite 202 in Princeton, New Jersey.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Prokanic was previously accepted as an expert in engineering. He is not yet qualified, though, as to planning. So, Mr. Prokanic, would you please just give the board a brief overview of your background and qualifications so that they can qualify you as both an engineer and a planner?
Absolutely. I graduated NJIT with a Bachelor's of Science. I have approximately 18 years of relevant industry experience. I'm both a licensed engineer and professional planner in the state of New Jersey. Both licenses are active and in good standing.
I don't have any issues. The board have any issues? Seeing none, we'll qualify you as an expert and you can provide us with some brief testimony. Also, if you wouldn't mind focusing on the utility hotbox and the potential of relocating that to somewhere in a better location.
Certainly.
So, Rich, if I could ask you to share your screen, put up the exhibits one at a time, identify them, and walk the board through the configuration of the site currently, what was approved, and what we're now seeking to change. And of course, please address the items that the chairman just mentioned.
Absolutely. Just give me 1 second so I can share my screen. All right, you should be able to see that any second now.
Okay, we've got the hearing exhibit list.
Okay, perfect. We will start with Exhibit A1, which was previously marked November 14th, 2022. It is entitled Aerial Exhibit, dated April 25th, 2022. This is the same exhibit that I presented at the last hearing. Very simply, it's the same property located on Route 22 at the bottom of the screen. We'll just refer to that as Plan South. On the east side is Stern Avenue, and then the surrounding area is all industrial, except to the west, which is the Nissan car dealership. On the southern side, you have a row of commercial establishments on Route 22. Any questions pertaining to the existing?
I think you could focus on the curb cuts and the offset, because that's what some of the board members had concerns with when we met.
So as Mr. Genslaw has indicated, let me back up. I am now referring to Exhibit A2, dated marked November 14th, 2022. It's entitled Site Plan Rendering, dated April 27th, 2022. This is what I presented at the last hearing as well. It remains unchanged. And this was the current driveway configuration along the west side of the property. The vehicles would come out and just turn right onto Route 22. And when we submitted to the DOT, they had some concerns in regarding granting waivers for the close proximity of our proposed driveway to the property line and our curb return to the neighboring curb return. The determination came back not favorable. We appealed. We met with the DOT twice, and they were not willing to grant that waiver. We understand your desire to have that configured in such a way where it made it as difficult as it could to cut across 22 into that U-turn area. We used that as the basis for our appeal to the DOT, but unfortunately, despite our best efforts, they would not give us the approval. As such, we did go back and make some slight redesigns to the driveway that are now in compliance with the DOT minor access permit and driveway design. As you'll see, the driveway shifted slightly further to the east, still preventing, to the best of our abilities, vehicles from sliding, going directly across and into the roundabout on 22. We do maintain the minimum 12 feet to the property line and 24 feet to the neighboring adjacent driveway.
This is exhibit A3, correct, that you're referring to now?
A3, I'm sorry, A3 dated November 14th, or marked November 14th, in pedo site plan rendering, dated November 14th.
Yeah, so let's mark these, Stephen, we're gonna mark these into, because these weren't previously submitted to the board. So let's mark these as A1 through A5.
Got it.
Perfect. Continue.
So as we were required to modify the driveway, there were some minor site adjustments that were needed. Previously, the vehicle coming around the building would just come straight out. Now there's a slight bend to the left before they start veering right to get back on Route 22. We did look at the circulation at WB67, the larger of the delivery vehicles we would ever anticipate on site, is able to appropriately maneuver out without going into oncoming traffic. And that's kind of the crutch of all of our site changes, was just that driveway being modified based on the DOT's inability to approve our previous layout.
Can you show the board where the 10 additional spaces came away?
Is that the bank parking? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had some parking spaces. I'm referring back to A2. Some parking spaces along the Nissan dealership's property line. That's the westerly property line, and then an additional row of parking along Stern Avenue. Referring back to A3, we've extended that parking a little bit, the bank parking a little bit further north for the westerly parking. The bank parking on the east remains the same, and then we had an additional 5 spaces directly in front of the driveway to be banked parking.
Okay, and then it's your testimony that none of these additional, that the parking demand counts aren't required to have the additional bank spots?
Correct. Based on a national study of floor and decor, and the size of this building and site, we would anticipate the need for 63 parking spaces. We are providing 133 that will be built initially. So by all of our operational standards, we're double what we need still.
Okay, and the condition board placed on the bank parking would continue that, now that you're going from 20 to 30, if Floor Decor found the need for additional parking, they would make an application to the TRC, and the TRC would make the jurisdiction to determine whether they're needed or not. If they denied you, you obviously had the right to come back to the planning board, but we're going to leave it at the TRC initially.
Yeah, that's an acceptable condition to us.
Right, that's fine.
Okay, the 2 last things. Number 1, if you can explain that corner,
Sure.
and Michael, to do any of those trees from growing could get in the site, the ability of people exiting or so forth. Have you taken into account of that?
Yeah, they're not within the sight lines, either coming into the site or leaving the site.
Perfect. And then the last thing I have before I want to turn over to Mr. Disco. From what I understand, there is our tree replacement ordinance is $100 per tree. There is 95 trees deficient on this site. So in the resolution, and we talked to council because we had thought it was more. It would be $9,500 payable to the
configuration. So moving that driveway over based on their criteria required an increase in approximately 3,000 square feet of additional impervious. We are helping mitigate that by providing an additional 13 trees on site. And as we agreed to work with Mr. Disco's office, if there's additional locations on the site where we could put a tree, we will certainly do so. We are still reducing the existing nonconformities in impervious coverages. We are still allowing for improvements in stormwater management compared to existing conditions, and we are still locating the driveway to the greatest extent practical in a manner to minimize cut-throughs to the U-turn as much as we're able to. I will also rely on the MLUL and utilize Purpose B. We will secure from fire, flood, and disaster, new construction, stormwater management, and the additional green space. Purpose H to encourage location and design of transportation routes to promote the free flow of traffic. The driveway configuration, although not as far west as the board would like and we would like to see, we did put it as far west as practical to minimize the U-turn cut-throughs. We do comply with the NJDOT edge clearance requirements, which is a safety issue. As a vehicle would pull into the Nissan dealership, we do need to allow them some space as our potential customers are leaving the site. Additionally, Purpose I will promote desirable visual environment. It's a bit of a larger building. We are setting it back as much as we can on the site and providing enhanced landscaping throughout to soften the feel from the highway and add some green space for the benefit of the neighborhood. The negative criteria was testified to originally at the first hearing. There is no substantial impact on the zone plan, master plan, or surrounding land issues. No substantial detriment to the public good. The site is still being improved. We're reducing the existing nonconformity of the impervious coverage. We do meet the spirit of the regulations with adequate parking and loading, specifically relative to our operational needs as a retail store. Additionally, we are going from 5 curb cuts to 2. So access in and out off of Route 22 will be much more streamlined and more structured. So very briefly, that's my planning testimony. I'm happy to go a little bit deeper if the board wishes.
No, well, let's see what Mr. Hughes feels. Mr. Disco, what is your thoughts on this? I think they covered it adequately.
Yeah, I think certainly the reason we're here has been explained. The hot box, obviously now we know it's 6 foot high. As the only thing I would add on that is if we can come off of Stern Avenue to supply the water, that would obviously be less than 100 feet. There's water mains available on Stern Ave. I'll allow, the applicant can interact with the water company with that for the response. It's just because those structures typically are not great looking. They can be masked to some degree because it is behind the property line and won't impact the sight distance from the Nissan property. Other than that, the lot coverage has been explained and the bank parking has been explained. The bank parking was something that the board felt comfortable with at the first board hearing and was acceptable in the sense that we have ample parking based upon their nationwide study, including the Wayne Floor and Decor. And the lot coverage increase for tonight resulted as a result of changing that geometry on the western side there. And the additional banked parking spaces will in actuality reduce the lot coverage. But since they potentially could be there in the future, we all felt safe to ask for the variance relief in the unlikely event that the bank parking spaces would come to fruition.
Perfect. Yeah, I agree. So, Michael, I'm sure the board would list as a condition of approval that you need to be satisfied that they've exhausted everything with American Water in order to keep the location that's currently there.
That's fine.
Mr. Hughes, anything you think the planning testimony was adequately covered for the variances?
I do. Look, I mean, the coverage has increased just slightly since the prior approval. However, I think in terms of mitigation, what they're providing in terms of additional bank parking and additional trees on site is reasonable and appropriate. And I just hope they can relocate the hot box. That's all.
Okay, so I'm going to take this opportunity to open up to the board. Can we take off the exhibits so we can see the board and they can see us? Perfect. So Mayor Kaiser, if you have any questions for the witness?
No questions for me.
Perfect. Mr. Huber?
No.
Mr. Schwartz?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barnett?
Nope, I think everything was explained really thoroughly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brendel?
No, agreed.
Mr. Loeffler?
No questions.
Mr. Wishna?
I'm good, thanks.
Mrs. Kessel, Vice Chair Kessel?
No questions.
Okay, perfect. And I have no questions anymore as well. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to take this matter and open it up to the public. Any members of the public wish to speak on the Florida Core application 3-22S amended site plan?
Seeing none.
Seeing none, I'm going to close it to the public and remand it back to the board. Since the board had no questions, I'm sure nothing changed. I'm going to ask to entertain a motion to approve the amended site plan with the continuing the parking variance and the greater lot coverage with the conditions that they comply with the tree replacement ordinance, $100 times 95 trees. They can put more trees on the site if they want. If Mr. Disco is comfortable, a hot box, every attempt has to be made with American Water to relocate the hot box and satisfy Mr. Disco if it stays in the same place. And the last condition is if the bank parking needs to be installed, they would apply to the TRC as approval. The board grants the TRC sole discretion. If they decline it, the applicant could come back to the planning board at that point in time. So seeing all those conditions, can I have a motion?
Chairman, can I just interrupt 1 second?
Of course.
In anticipation that this would be quite a simple hearing tonight, since it's amended site plan, we took the liberty of working and preparing a resolution in advance. The only two items that are not explicitly covered in what we've drafted to date include the hot box issue and allowing the applicant to work with TRC on the parking. But those are relatively minor things that could be added if the board is comfortable in terms of both approving and memorializing a resolution this evening, that we could do that. We would just slightly tweak the drafted resolution to incorporate the hot box and the parking.
Given that we have a meeting in 2 weeks, we'll just adopt the resolution on November 28th. Okay, it won't affect Counselor. It's not going to affect you doing anything, correct?
Well, we would just like to be able to start the process of getting authorization for demo as quickly as possible. And what we had been told is that we would not be able to get a demo permit until we finished resolution compliance. So it does potentially slow things down for at least a couple of weeks, which is why we had asked if there was any possibility of memorializing this evening.
Okay. Stephen, can you read the resolution into the record then? Is it long?
Yes.
All right. Well,
I'm sorry. I'm not comfortable. I would rather see it and have a chance to revise and edit it as appropriate.
Yep.
It's
I agree.
2 weeks and it's, I apologize to council and to the applicant, but this is not our doing. This is the DOT's doing.
This is true.
So what Michael can do is ask the building department to accept your permits, review them, and not issue them until the resolution is adopted. So this way you don't lose time. You could still submit them. You can still pay the fees and do what you need to do. Michael will ask the building department if they will do that. That could be the recommendation of the board, but not release the permit until the resolution is adopted in 2 weeks.
If you could pave the way to expedite review while the memorialization is getting finalized, that would be extremely helpful. We would very much appreciate that.
Mr. Disco will work with you guys on that process. Perfect. So let's just do a motion to approve the application as read, and we'll do the resolution on November 28th.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
You have a motion.
What's that?
I think the mayor made a motion. Do we need a second?
Where'd that
Mr.
voice
Brian,
go? I'll second. Just not sure where that voice came from.
It was from Alex, Mayor Alex.
Okay.
Can we have a roll call?
Mayor Kaiser,
Yes, please, Mike, please work with these applicants to get this done as quickly as possible. We don't want to hold up business any longer, and we would like this, so anything that we can do is in the best interest of the town. So I vote to approve.
great. Mr. Barnett,
Yes.
Committeeman Huber,
Yes.
Mr. Lawfer,
Yes.
Mr. Wishna,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kessel,
Yes.
Chairman Tiger.
Yes.
Um,
Jen, do I get a
Madam
vote?
Secretary?
Jen, I get a vote?
Do I get to
Right.
vote, Madam Secretary?
Sorry. My bad. Mr. Schwartz
Yes to approve.
and Mr. Brendel.
Yes.
Great. Motion
Oh.
passes.
All right, perfect.
Thank you.
Good luck. Work with Michael and he'll try to do the best he can. And we'll adopt the resolution on the 28th. At this
Thank you
time,
very much.
perfect. Good luck and best of luck. We're looking forward to welcoming you in Springfield. At this time, I'd like to open the meeting up to anyone of the public that wish to speak about any matters that's before the board or questions and concerns. Abu?
Seeing none.
Perfect. At that time, I'm going to close it and I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn and just make sure the board's aware that November 28th, 2022, we have a special meeting for the goods and maybe one other item. On the 22nd, 6:30 will be our last virtual meeting, completely last virtual meeting. Motion to adjourn, someone?
So,
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Aye.